From San Jose State University, you're watching Equal Time, exploring new issues each week, giving equal time to competing points of view.
Welcome to the campus of San Jose State University and a very special edition of Equal Time. I'm your host, journalism professor Bob Rucker. Today we're going to take extended time and talk about something that's on your mind, the issues in higher education, the concerns you have, and how we're going to address them. Today we've assembled a panel of experts that are top officials here in Bay Area higher education. Let's meet our guests.
Hi, my name is John Hendrickson, Chancellor, West Valley Mission Community College District, West Valley in Saratoga, Mission College in the heart of the city of Santa Clara.
Hello, I'm Mo Qayoumi, President of San Jose State University.
Vanessa Zuniga, student at San Jose State University.
Hi, I'm Steve Kinsella, Superintendent President of Gavilan College in Gilroy, California.
Hi, I'm Liz Cara. I'm a professor of occupational therapy here at San Jose State, and I'm also the president of the California Faculty Association on this campus.
Very good. We thank you all for being here today. And quite frankly, today is about you. We want to talk about some of the issues that are clearly on your mind. And let's start by all the news coverage about, is higher education becoming less accessible for people and their families? I'm sure you hear about it. I know you hear about it. Are we putting up roadblocks and making people feel like they're not welcome? Or what's going on exactly? What would you say, John?
Well, the way that I would like to frame it is that to look at our future and what kind of future do we would like to see for our state and our nation. What kind of technologies would like to have, what kind of a quality of life we should have, and also reflect upon the last 100 to or 50 years, you know, and see the greatness of our state and the greatness of our nation has been the opportunities for so many our young men and women to be able to go to public higher education or private higher education. And unfortunately, given the economy, our state of economy, and given our priorities of all of us as citizens, we are really not being able to provide those opportunities for our youth. And this is a major tragedy for all of us as a society.
Very well said. I would imagine the community colleges feel the same way.
Yes, we have a similar problem. And of course, we also have a very large component of working adults that will work during the day and frequently take classes either in part of the day or in the evening. So we've lost the traditional student, the 18 to 24-year-old student, and we've lost significant amounts of working adults that are trying to better their education and acquire additional job skills for their current employment and for those that are trying to retrain so they can get back into employment.
Very good. John, I would think you have the same concerns in your system?
Yeah, one thing we note is California has had over time the greatest higher education system the world had ever seen. And because of that, California is and remains to be a driving economy for the world. And here in Santa Clara, most especially with the Silicon Valley relying on higher education. If a person has the motivation to improve themselves in California, there's the ability to move into higher education through community colleges, through the state universities or the UC system, and it is our impairing obligation as a society to assure that that ability that has proven to be so successful isn't diminished at this time of greatest need.
But can we do that when the public is hearing from Sacramento and in the news, budget cuts, budget cuts, budget cuts? They fear that our goals, we've been very successful, but our goals may not be attainable. And I think union people probably on our campuses feel the concern as well.
We feel the concern. We have a little different way of looking at it, actually, though, because we feel that we keep hearing that, that less money is the new normal. And we'd like to strike that language out, actually, of the lexicon, because we feel that, just for example, the budget this year is 4% higher than it was last year. The budget for the CSU system in 2009-2010, when faculty took a 10% pay cut, is 12% higher than it was. So there is an increase, there has been an increase in the budget. So we'd like to strike that language out.
I would imagine. And Vanessa, you're the focus of our attention. You are the students on our campuses that we're trying to serve, that we're trying to enable a better future. When you hear all of this, what are your thoughts as a student?
Well, I find it interesting, first of all, I hear on the local news all the time and on campus as well that we are having budget cuts, and this has been taking place, the last several years. But when Liz says, there's been an increase in the budget, I'm conflicted to try to grasp that and understand, if we're having budget cuts, then why do we need to do that if we lifted the budget? So yeah, I am very concerned. I graduated from here in 2007, and I recently came back to take a course to finish my minor, and the price that I was paying in 2007 and before that has dramatically changed within the last 4.5 years. So that concerns me, and also too, I'm a parent now. My son's gonna be 8 months, and I think about his future, and are we gonna be able to afford his college tuition with all these budget cuts, and also too with the state cuts that play into that. So yeah, it is a very concerning issue at this time.
I think your point of view resonates with our viewers. I'm pretty sure many people just heard their life story as well. Let me put out there some information during the course of this program that will help everybody understand what these individuals are up against in terms of the numbers. According to the governor's budget from Sacramento, in the past 4 years, the state reduced funding by $2.6 billion in the general funds to the UC, the California State Universities, community colleges, and the Hastings College of Law. Now, when you look at those numbers, you think, my goodness, we're going to lose that much money? Is that going to directly affect what we can do? Because San Jose State has an incredible reputation in a variety of fields, but that's a lot of money to lose.
Absolutely. We've, specifically, if you look at the CSU alone, we lost $750 million. And then given if the governor's tax initiative does not pass, the CSU overall would lose at least $200 million. That was before, looking at the current revenue projections that may revise shows that potentially the state revenues could have somewhere between $1 to $3 billion for the shortfall. For us, every $100 million shortfall in or budget cut in the CSU means about $6.5 million. So as you can see that you're talking about over a $50 million reduction in San Jose State's budget alone. It's true that some of that has been reduced by some of our fee increases, which has brought a lot of difficulty in our students. In addition to that, our faculty, our staff, our administrators have not seen a salary increase for over 4 years. But also we have, and there are a number of other cost increases that we cannot avoid. For instance, if you look at healthcare costs, retirement costs, utility costs, all of the obsolescence of equipment that we have to replace, all of those ones are continuing. So in reality, the budget cut is much more than also that $750 million, because a lot of expenses has increased over and above that. So in reality, that budget cut is over $1 billion. When you talk about all of the other cost increases that the universities had to absorb. And when you look at the University of California community colleges, the impact has been very similar, if not worse.
And those numbers are pretty much resonating right there with people. Let's talk about community colleges. You've also had a pinch.
We've had similar cuts. I don't know the exact amount to the state, but our budget was cut about another 4% this year, and we have an expectation of larger reductions if the governor's ballot measure doesn't pass. But the impact is where I'd really like to spend more of my time focusing. The impact on students in the community colleges is that we end up taking away support services that for many of these students are the one component in their education that makes the difference. It's a tutoring lab. It's time working through technology labs that have tutoring programs available to them. It's a one-on-one instruction with faculty members. That contact allows the student to really get some of these topics that in many cases they just struggle with for years. And they need that kind of focus for a period of time until they learn how to study, until they learn how to be students. Some of our students haven't been to school in 10, 15 years. We typically get them out of high school, they take a couple of classes that they're not prepared for, they drop out, and we'll see them 10 years later when they realize they can't live on minimum wage anymore. They can't raise a family on minimum wage. Then they have the commitment to be at college. They then have to rely on us to help them gain the skills so they can succeed and be successful in college. And that's what I'm most concerned about. We're losing the ability to provide those types of services that students really need to be successful.
And John, I think you probably have that concern. I know you do as a faculty person.
I actually wanted to add
Sure.
to what Steve was saying. Right now, it's San Jose State in the CSU system, but I think it's San Jose State in particular. Only 35% of the budget goes for actual student support, instructional services, and it's not that much more for support services for the students also. So, so I wholeheartedly agree, and it makes it. And many of our students work. They work. You know, some of them have 2 and 3 jobs. And just to make it, so they really need these services. So it's a pretty abysmal picture. Whereas in probably 15 to 20 years ago, the support used to be maybe upwards of 60%. So.
Changing times. And later on, I want to talk a little bit about the changing perspective of the college systems in California, because I grew up in the Midwest, and we were never told that we were promised an education and it would be free. So when I came out here in 1990, I thought, how can they do that? How is that sustainable? John, I suspect you have had that question in your mind.
Just to turn the conversation a little bit, it isn't just we need more money. Perhaps we do need to examine how we use our precious state and local tax dollars and student fees and get into a difficult discussion which at the state level is occurring on prioritization of enrollments. We at this time need to focus on the underprepared high school student who needs to come to college and gain those basic skills to be successful. But that isn't the promise forever. That is for us to have the facilities, the student support programs, the instructional staff, to give everybody an opportunity to move ahead with their lives and contribute to their families and to the state. We want to focus on transfer education. So you come to a community college, we should be able to promise that you're assessed, placed, and move in speed and make that next seat available for another high school student who wants to get into class. And we want to move quickly, focusing on transfer, and we do need what we have in place today, which is a really strong relationship with the CSU, the state university systems, to guarantee that students who enroll in a transfer degree program can take 60 units and be promised admission, and we need to keep that moving. We want to focus also on the really high-paying career and technical education field that community colleges have developed a strong reputation for. I would promote individually the opportunity at a local level to have an enrollment fee option adopted by a local board of trustees so that those high-cost career tech opportunities aren't being driven away because we are unable to develop a fee structure to support them. So the tough discussion about prioritization, assuring that we are focusing on student success and making sure the tools are there. There's a saying that says students don't do optional. If we can make it clear, we probably are going to support. And what I'm saying is taking place, and what we need is a balanced approach. We need to assure that the November tax extension election is successful, so the money's there. And likewise, we have to take a hold of higher education and assure that we are prioritizing and using these dollars for their best purposes.
I would suspect most of the people here are hoping that that initiative will pass. But the reality is there's no guarantees.
Of course, there's no guarantees, and especially there is still an expectation on at least one part of our society that we should try to cut the state coffers even more and more. And I think one of the things that they miss is that the more that you cut higher education, you are almost voting to increase our correction system. I mean, one of the reasons that our correction system has been, among others, has been so high is because of the fact that so many young people do not have the opportunity to be able to build a life for themselves, the opportunity to be able to get a good education, the opportunity to have the kind of jobs that could they really realize the American dream. So I think that really has been that link has to be made quite clear. And that's why it's a tragedy that we are a state that we spend so much more on correction system rather than educating our youth. When we are spending over $50,000 per inmate a year versus and the CSU system around 5,000, or community college less than that. That really is part of the priorities that all of our citizens should really look at and really recognize what again, I go back to what kind of California we really would like to see for ourselves.
Right. The correction system to a lot of people doesn't make sense because we change the system, maybe we can get the problem under control. But
the correction system is also a profit-making system, and we're a public system. We're public servants, and we serve the public, so it makes even more sense to serve the public students. But I wanted to add on. I think that that although there is a lot of people you hear, mostly politicians, say that they don't want to raise taxes, I think there's a different story. I think most of the people that I know that are the middle class would be willing to pay more revenue if they know that it's going to education. I think most people I know think it's ridiculous that we've had this 2/3 majority that needs to pass a tax in California because they're willing to contribute. So and so I think actually we need to get out there more. Everyone, the Chancellor, we certainly do that in CFA. We need to get out there more and talk about this the tax bill, the compromise that was between the governors and the millionaires tax bill. We need to get out there and we need to really advocate for it.
Your point is well taken because a lot of the polls are suggesting that this could fail. And Vanessa, parents out there, moms and dads like yourself, are thinking, wait a minute, we pay high enough taxes. I hear that all the time from people in the community. Why do you need more money at San Jose State? Why do you need more money at your community colleges? You've got enough, your budget is big enough. Do you hear that in communities and neighborhoods where you live?
I do hear that, and I do have to say, personal myself and my boyfriend, for our son in general, we're at an age where we talk about taxes and how much we pay and take out of our check and that sort of thing. And we are willing to, like Liz said, that poll that's been going on, that we are willing to pay more to make sure that not just our son, but that other children in our community do get an education and a good education. So that's not a really big issue for us. The thing is where is this money, like you said, is being spent? How is it being allocated is what concerns us the most. Because, you have all this money to deal with, but which pots are they being put in? It doesn't seem like they're being handled correctly. So, yeah, it is a big concern for us. And just to go back to a point that you brought up, Bob, saying that, you came from the East and you guys didn't have that expectation where, education is free. Well, I don't think we have that either on this side of or I would say the states on this coast. I went through the system where I started from community college and I went to De Anza, and then from there, I was working part-time. I had 2 jobs at some point, and I was also getting financial aid, but I wasn't expecting it to be free. I knew I would have to pay for out of my pocket as well. And then I was put through the program where you were guaranteed a seat at San Jose State if you followed through with all of your classes. And from there, I went into San Jose State and I worked as well. So I wasn't your traditional kind of student. So I don't want people to get that perspective that Californians think it's free, because I knew from the beginning, from the get-go, it wasn't free, but I would get some assistance. And I knew I put money into that pot as well because I was working the whole time. So I was paying my taxes too. So, I just want to make sure people get that clear out there, that we're not expecting it to be free and just fall in our laps.
I think I would like to also mention that some of the things that are happening. First of all, it's wonderful that we see the leaders of the 3 systems, the University of California, California State University, and community colleges are working together. I think one of the legislations that was passed, SBA 1440, where it creates the pathway that John talked about, where students could take the 60 credits in the community colleges and then continue on to UC and CSU without really taking far more courses and be able to graduate in a timely fashion. I think it's very good, it's very important. And so we can have more students be able to still get that their education and any help, that, because if we can make that $1,200 to zero, it means that that student would not have to work at that additional $1,200 an hour. They don't have to raise, for instance, or borrow that money, because we need to find ways to reduce that borrowing, have more opportunities that students will be able to take their courses and have a pathway so they can graduate as quickly as possible.
See, Vanessa likes that already.
I do like that already, because textbooks were a big chunk of how much I paid, into my tuition and all that sort of thing, not plus the cost of living and finding an apartment and finding a roommate, that kind of stuff. But no, I do like hearing that stuff too, and especially with, we're in Silicon Valley. We're in the mecca center of technology. Why can't we have done that years ago? At the end of the day, you know, we know it's the bottom line. It's business, you know, profit, how much profit, what are the profit margins, that kind of thing. So I do like hearing that because it does help out students. And, you know, I remember at the beginning of the semester or the quarter at De Anza, you know, most of the conversation centered around trying to find parking, buying your expensive parking permit, and then also too, like, oh my God, I gotta pay for books, and I only have like 2 more days. I better get it. I better get it. Yeah. So yeah, it is a big cost.
Even for instance, you know, right now for over 200 of our courses, we have those textbooks available electronically in the library. So students could be able to check that electronically, even at home or their residence halls or wherever, so they'll have access. So we're looking at a series of ways, but the hope is that over time, we'll be able to migrate all of that through open source content and material, so students will not have to buy books for practically most of their courses. I think that will be a major advantage.
I just want to point out that being where the position I am for the past 4 years, the real warriors, the people that are making it work, are our faculty and our support staff. The efficiency levels by having more and more students in class and the ability of support personnel who are working with fewer of them because of budget cuts is just amazing. And I can also say absolutely that there is no more efficiency to be gained. We can't do this anymore. We are in a position where we've been forced by the state legislature to turn away probably near 500,000 people in the state of California today who should be in college, who want to be in college, who have the ability to do college work, and we can't help them, and we can't get more efficient than we are today. I mean, we are really working hard, and our employees have stepped up big time. Franklin Roosevelt, I was preparing for a speech once, said, and I think he was in troubled times when he took over the presidency of the United States of America, said, in troubled times, the last place you cut is education. And in California, we need to get back to say, we need to get something into the system because we could do a lot more with a little more help. And I'm hoping that the public will recognize that and give us the tools in order to do this job even greater than what we are doing today.
And I'm pretty sure you think this is good to hear.
I was just going to say, I have to also agree that, I mean, being on the faculty here, we are totally bare bones. I mean, I've had people say, well, what can you cut? It's like nothing, frankly. We are bare bones. We're doing our best, I think. And I think everyone I know on faculty is totally dedicated to their students. And yet, there's just really nothing more we could do. The workload has increased tremendously, and it's rather demoralizing when we haven't, certainly our salaries haven't increased at all, and we did take a pay cut. So we really are doing a bang-up job, I think, with what we have, but it can't continue. The quality of education will suffer, essentially. That's what we're fighting against, but
so
the quality is going
down. I think especially at this time it's very critical, because as we see that the economy is beginning to grow and recover, and especially in Silicon Valley, many of the companies are hiring. And as you can see, the problem that we have in Silicon Valley is not going to be unemployment, it's going to be unemployability. Basically, the mismatch of the skill sets that the companies require versus the workforce available. So as part of it, many of these companies, when that becomes worse and worse, many of these companies will move away from their area, or rather than having expansions in the Bay Area or California, they'll go overseas. And I think that is a major loss for our region, for our state, and for our nation. And that basically is what we need to, we need to change that wave, especially if you look at all of the key reports from California Public Policy Institutes and others, where they project a major shortfalls of four-year college graduates, and especially in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. So as John was saying, for us to really look at those key areas that we need help on, if we do not invest right now, in 2 or 3 years it might be too late. I think, as Les talked about, in terms of our faculty, in terms of our systems, we've gotten to a point that if we had any more cuts, it will not be able to return it back to the even current situation.
That's,
we could
that's
lose
a
it.
major concern.
That is, and that's why it's so critical at this point that we, really say that no more. Let's see how we can invest in higher education, identify our priorities, and also have higher expectations from higher education. That should really be the case. There should be more, the public should hold us accountable. But I think this is the time that the public should really convince our top legislators to invest in higher education, because time is now.
And I worry about the public image of higher education by some of our national leaders. We're hearing in presidential primary years and seasons that going to college is an elitist concept and it's something that those people do. When in reality, I mean, I came from a ghetto situation as a child, and if it wasn't for higher education, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I would imagine you see students that way as well.
We see an awful lot of students that way. About 2/3 of our students are first-generation college students. So the support services that I talked about earlier are critical as they try to gain the skills that are necessary to be successful in college. What we are seeing overall, as John has pointed out, and everybody is seeing this, we've reached a point where our capacity to address the problem going forward is really at a breaking point right now. We've done what we can do to reduce the total number of students that we serve. So we can reduce class schedules, we can bring down services, we can lower things to a level where we still meet our accreditation standards, which are the bare bones minimum that we have to meet at all times. And colleges are having a hard time maintaining that level. But as we look at this point where we are now, we all pretty much agree we're probably at the end of the recession, and we should be doing better. Now, if we were to make additional reductions, we have cut out the capacity to expand. Because right now, we are as far down as we can go. We've stopped serving the larger number of students. We've lost about 800 students and full-time equivalent students in the last 3 years. And the workload reduction that is the state's way of addressing our shortfall. They just say, okay, you don't have to serve as many students anymore. Well, we want to serve those students. Those students want to be here. They're trying to get in, yet the state won't pay for it. So we make the decision locally, well, we're going to offer the classes anyways. And so we go over the level that the state will pay, and as they take more and more funds away, and every year it's a different amount, but it still is pretty consistent, we're really stuck with trying to resolve the problem of eliminating costs within the budget and making an educated guess as to when we just put on the brakes and say, that's it, we can't reduce our expenditures any longer. Now we have to start to draw down on the rest of our reserves.
This conversation is going great. We want to continue it. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to continue it next week. So come on back for another edition of Equal Time.